We're almost there, and we're live, all set.
Okay, great. Hi, I want to welcome everyone. This is our first informative meeting on the budget and the bonds that we are looking at. These are things that would be voted on at the May 11th deliberative session. We have a checklist that we have to read at the beginning of every meeting. And I happen to be the one who has a copy of the checklist, so I get to read it. So here we go again. A checklist to ensure meetings are compliant with the right to know law during the state of emergency. As chair of the Board of Selectmen, I found that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are using both YouTube, which you can watch later if you want to do that, and we are using Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, these platforms, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting by using the chat room or raising your hand in Zoom by calling the phone number 603-236-4730 or by clicking on the website address www.watervillevalley.org or texting to 603-254-2708. And B, we are providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have been provided on the website of the town at www.watervillevalley.org. And C, we are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-236-4730 or email townofwv@watervillevalley.org. And D, we are adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. We're not planning to take any votes during this meeting. Let me introduce myself. This is Margaret Turner. I'm the chair of the Board of Selectmen, and I would ask my other select board members to introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. Rich Rita here. I am the vice chair on the select board.
Mike Aronson here.
Okay, so we are going to turn this over to Mark, who is going to be displaying a presentation. And Mark, what do you want to do about questions? Ask as we go along, or do you want them to hold till the end?
I think because I'm going to be sharing my screen, Margaret, it's probably easiest to wait until the end if we can.
Okay.
If you would, you can put them in the chat or just raise your hand or whatever. We have about 30 people on. So
okay.
Please raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question at the end, and I'll take whatever time we need to get questions answered.
Right. Okay. And also, could I ask everybody to mute?
Please.
So
mute.
that you don't have to listen to my barking dogs anymore, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Thanks.
All right. So I am, again, welcome. This is an informational meeting. It is not our official bond and budget hearing that we have every year. We will be doing that on March 24th. because as Margaret said, we've moved the town deliberative session and voting on these warrant articles for our town budget to May 11th this year. That'll hopefully allow us to come together in a safe manner and do an in-person town deliberative session. So I'm going to share my screen, and I've got some presentation slides with some information that I'd like to share with you. So let me see. You're probably not seeing the correct screen, are you? Are you looking at my regular screen? So let me stop and let's share that. How about now? Can everybody see slides? All right, so this evening we're going to talk about a bit of budget summary information. Again, I'm not going into a lot of detail on the operations budget line by line this evening, but I do want to review the summary of the budget and talk about some major impact areas that we're seeing in the operations budget this year. I also want to discuss for a couple of slides the use of fund balance, because that does have a significant impact on our tax rate. But I want to primarily focus this evening on explaining our two bond warrant articles. And chief among those is our wastewater treatment plant, and provide you all with some information regarding this very large project that we are going to be starting later this year. Also, we have another warrant article, a smaller warrant article that is a bond for road improvements that I will go over. Once I get through that, then we will take questions. So here is our 2021 budget summary. We are actually projecting a decrease in the estimated amount of taxes to be raised in October of this year. That is because we have these new bond projects, but we will not actually be borrowing this money that would be authorized if you pass the warrant articles at town meeting. We would not be borrowing that money during 2021. We would actually be borrowing it in 2022. So the actual financial impact, as you'll see, I've got a slide later on, is further down the road than this year. So this year, with our operating budget and the amount of revenues that we are projecting, we are actually looking at a decrease in the overall budget of a little over $11,000. That's about 3 cents on the tax rate. So basically a level budget from 2020 to 2021. We do have areas, when you look at the town report and the budget summary sheet that has each of the department line items on it, you'll see some areas that are increasing and some areas that are decreasing. Among the increases are some of our personnel costs. That includes retirement increases in the town share of the New Hampshire retirement system costs. And we are doing some succession planning with some long-term employee who may be leaving during 2021. So we have funds included in the budget for succession planning for that. We also, you'll see an increase in our legal fees line. That includes money for the town of Waterville Valley to participate in the Coalition Communities Group. And we'll talk about that more at a future meeting. And then we are increasing our contingency account just because we have several unknowns within the budget this year. Decreasing line items or decreasing funding items are the SHUS bus system. We're only raising half of what we normally raise. This is a 1-year reduction because the bus service has changed because of COVID restrictions. So we have to raise less money this year. Recreation services budgets are still being impacted by COVID requirements. So we have adjusted the rec department services and that's caused a decrease in the funding request. And then debt service, because we have retired a couple of existing bonds, for 2021, our debt service number is actually decreasing from last year. Our fund balance use, each year we use our fund balance, which basically is our surplus, either revenues that we collected that we did not anticipate or expenditures that we had budgeted for that we didn't spend the money. That surplus is put into what is called our fund balance account. And that every year the selectmen decide an amount of money that we want to use to reduce the amount of taxes to be raised in that year. Our fund balance has been used primarily, and we're recommending again this year to use it to pay for one-time capital items. Between 2015 and 2020, we've used a total of $1,148,000 of fund balance to reduce taxes. And that has helped take $3.44 off the tax rate through those years at our current valuation. And all of the numbers on this chart in orange are actual numbers because we have closed out 2020. The 2021 number is a projected number that you're looking at here. And I am getting a bunch of text. Okay, none of them are problems with video, so we're good to go. The selectmen during the year, we utilized in 2020, we utilized about $370,000. We did not expend all of those funds during 2020 because of limitations that were placed on us by COVID. The balances from that 370,000 have been retained in capital accounts, and that will provide for additional funding for capital improvements through 2021. The number that we are retaining for fund balance is at the end of, or as of December 31st of 2020 is about $890,000. That is about 14% of our operating budget. And given the way we're looking at 2021 right now, we're confident that by the end of December this year, that we would be looking at about the same number or a little bit more, right around the 14 to 15% of the operating budget. The state of New Hampshire recommends that we retain somewhere between 6 and 17% of our operating budget level for a healthy fund balance. So you can see we've got a very healthy amount that we are using within our fund balance. So as I mentioned before, we have two bond warrant articles coming up on the 2021 town meeting warrant. Both of these will be written ballots during the town business meeting on May 11th. They require a 3/5 majority vote in order to pass. This is a change. For those of you who have been to town meeting before, you might have realized that we required a 2/3 majority vote. However, the state legislature changed that threshold, and it is now 3/5 majority to pass. So we have two projects. The first is a $5 million bond article authorization for the wastewater treatment plant project, and the other is a $900,000 bond authorization article for road repairs and repaving. So let's look at each one of those. First, the wastewater treatment plant. Our current plant is 47 years old right now. There is some equipment that's in the plant that is original to the 1970s when the plant was built, and that equipment is still in operation. A lot of the equipment in there, just because it's been exposed to the elements and to the different chemicals that we use in the treatment process, some of the equipment has been severely degraded. It's rusting. Repairs have been made, and there's kind of a patchwork on some of the equipment in the plant. We have purposely not put a lot of money into the plant over the last couple of years because we were aware that the EPA was in the process of reviewing our permit and that they could be giving us changes, which I will talk about what happened when they finally told us about that new permit. So we did have some capital improvements in our CIP previously, but there is a lot of equipment in there in the plant right now that needs to be replaced. Additionally, the age of the equipment means that we have a lack of maintenance support for that equipment. So, some of the companies that helped us build the plant back in the 1970s or provided equipment for it don't exist anymore. We can't get replacement parts, and there aren't, in a lot of cases, the vendors out there do not have the knowledge to make repairs on our existing equipment. So when something breaks, we very often have to buy something totally new and plug it into the system. We also have a safe plant. However, there are key systems, and especially the HVAC system, the heating ventilation system, that is completely lacking at the plant. So when we are treating, using certain chemicals to treat the wastewater, we actually have to open the windows in the plant and circulate air through that way because we don't have an air handling system in our current plant. The new EPA permit. So at the beginning of December, we were contacted by the EPA Boston office and told that they wanted to give us the first indication of our new permit requirements. We had that meeting the first week of December, and they will follow that up with an actual implementation date for these new standards. And they will give us the standards in writing. So nothing is absolutely certain yet, but the treatment standards that they shared with us at the beginning of December are much more stringent than our current EPA permit. The reason that we have the EPA permit, for those of you who don't know, is because after we treat the wastewater, we actually send the treated water at the end of the process into the Mad River. And in order to discharge that water, we have to be permitted by the EPA. We are monitored in addition to the EPA permit, we're monitored by the State Department of Environmental Services. So these stringent treatment standards are going to mean that we have new treatment requirements that we are going to have to meet that our current plant cannot do. And as I said, we don't yet know the implementation date for the plant, but for the new standards. But we know that we are going to get sometime in 2021, we will get the actual written document laying out the new standards. So when we first got the indication of the new standards, the first thing we did was examine, can we simply upgrade our existing plant, or are we going to have to build an entirely new plant? We need to maintain our treatment process that's in place right now while we build something to meet the new standards. So it isn't a switch that we can turn on and off. This process has to continue to move while we're doing the new requirements. So that kind of means we cannot, given the limitations of our current plant, simply upgrade a piece of the plant at a time, because we would not be able to continue to treat wastewater, and we basically don't have any place to put it in the interim. So that's a major consideration here when we look at deciding whether or not to build a new plant. Our current plant, I don't know if how many of you have seen it, but it basically is a very nice building with a peaked roof. It's nothing like what you would envision in your mind when someone says wastewater treatment plant to you. It looks like a house. That means, though, that we don't have accessibility to move large components in and out. There are no big doors. There's no big roof door or anything like that that we can use to move new equipment in or move old equipment out. So we are very limited in our accessibility for the improvements. Also, the age of the plant works against us. 1974, 1973, 74 technology. As I said, a lot of this is not currently available on the market. So we need to leverage new technology that is available out there, and we will look at all of the different options as we go through this process to implement new technology, not just in the wastewater treatment piece, but also in the in things like energy efficiency, et cetera. Let me move this out of your way. There we go. All right. So all of these things combined have led us to look primarily at building a new plant. So we have looked so far, and we're not done looking at this point, but so far we have looked at two different treatment options, either continuing to discharge the cleaned water into the Mad River, or develop an all new treatment system, which is called groundwater discharge. So I'd like to talk about those for a couple of minutes. The reason that we're looking at groundwater discharge is it has a benefit of having less stringent treatment standards. So you don't have to use as much chemicals, and you don't have to spend as much time cleaning the water before you discharge it to the groundwater portion of the treatment process. It also has lower construction and long-term operating costs, which is a good thing. Another major plus here is that state permitting is all that's required for a groundwater discharge permit. The EPA does not have any permitting authority on the groundwater discharge system. It's all by New Hampshire DES. Given those pluses, there are also several negatives to this. First of all, it would require land acquisition. As everybody is probably aware, there's just not a lot of available land here in Waterville Valley. The location of the land that we use, it is going to be based on suitable land being available. So the land has to be able to let water percolate through it, and it can't be very hilly or have those sorts of things. Acquiring the land will also affect our construction costs because we may need to bring additional materials in to make the land more suitable or whatever. It really puts a lot of unknowns into our construction cost estimates. Plus, we would have the additional cost of having to purchase land because the town doesn't have any real suitable land at this point in time, except for the area here where Town Hall and the DPW garage are located. So we would definitely have to purchase land, and we don't even know if the land would be available. We don't know if people would be willing to sell their land. And then there is a cost to investigate and to permit the land once we identify it and purchase it. So again, we start impacting the overall project costs, even though the actual construction of the plant might be lower. By the time we spend a lot of money in buying land and investigating, permitting it, whatever, we could end up spending the same thing as the discharge into the Mad River. Finally, because of the limited amount of land that we have available here in town, whatever system, groundwater discharge system we put in place would probably have limited growth potential. And that's because it takes quite a bit of land to put this wastewater into to treat it fully. So we may be limited in future growth for the town if we went to a groundwater discharge system. So then we have initially started looking at continuing the river discharge option. There are higher construction costs that we anticipate because that type of plant is more complex than the groundwater discharge. And they tend to be, again, we don't know exact long-term operating costs because we haven't gotten into the actual design of the plant yet, but we anticipate that there would be higher long-term operating costs of a treatment plant built to continue to discharge water into the Mad River. On the plus side, we have sufficient town-owned land, we feel right now, to build this type of new plant. And we would build the plant so that we could meet our current needs plus up to 50 or 60% future growth, which is a good thing, meaning that we would not have to expand the plant if there were new development here in town. It's really a neutral area for both the EPA and DES permits, whether it's continuing to discharge into the Mad River or to do the groundwater discharge. There may be future permit requirements from both the EPA and the New Hampshire DES that we're going to have to take into account. So we really don't know what those future permit requirements, how they're going to impact the overall cost of the treatment plant. So let's talk a little bit about the funding request. $5 million bond funding. It would have the bond authorization language would lay out multiple uses for this authorization of these funds. We have to maintain our existing facilities while we build the new plant, which could be a 3 to 5 year process. And as I said, a lot of the equipment is old in our existing plant. So if something serious were to break, unfortunately, we will have to fix it in order to keep operating our existing facility. So some of this money might go to that if something breaks during the project timeline. We will use it for engineering. There is a lot of preliminary engineering that has to go on. We have to investigate the different designs. We have to pilot new technology. We're going to try to look at as many different new ways of doing wastewater treatment so that we get the most cost-effective new plant that we possibly can. All of that requires us to have a professional engineering firm, which we currently have engaged Hoyle Tanner engineers to do this project with us. And you're going to be seeing their name throughout the coming several years in doing all of the design work. And they also help us with the bid process to get the contractor on board. And then as the plant is being built, they will also provide engineering services on the actual construction phase of the project. We also, as I said, need to pilot new technologies. There's a lot of exciting new ways to do things when it comes to wastewater treatment. I know nobody gets excited about this except maybe Dylan and myself, but we want to make sure that whatever technology we put into this new plant, that come the end of the construction and when we put it online, that we have a cutting edge system in place so that we can go hopefully another 40 years or more without having to make any major upgrades. And I think it's a real testament to what was done back in the 70s, because we have enjoyed one of the best treatment plants in the entire state for the past 40 plus years. And that's because they took the time and they put a system in place which was the best technology that they possibly could do at that time. And so we're gonna try to do that as long as it's not cost prohibitive. And as part of that, we're gonna look at everything new. So wait till you see the pink algae, right, Dylan? Land purchase. We are putting that in as a possible land use. We don't have any plans at this time to purchase any additional land. However, we want to have the flexibility that if there is a technology that would require us to have some additional land, that we have the authorization as part of this $5 million bond to be able to use the money for that purpose. I don't know how we will borrow this money. I do not anticipate that we would borrow it in one lump sum at the present time. I believe that this authorization will take us easily through the rest of this year and into 2022, as long as there aren't any major maintenance costs. Then I would, or any land purchases that make us spend a lot of this money. I would anticipate that right now that there would be some of this $5 million left when we got to the construction phase. However, we are also going to be balancing interest rates. Right now, they're very favorable. So if we know we're going to use this $5 million, we may want to accelerate into 2022 the borrowing of this money to take advantage of some favorable rates. But that's a decision that's far down the road. And as I said, unexpended funds will be used for construction. Let me just go back one other thing. So the overall, the plant or the treatment plant project, we have in the capital improvements program as a 3-year funding layout. So we have this $5 million in 2021, and then we do not have any funding authorization in the current CIP for 2022. And then we have a balance of the monies necessary to actually build the plant that we would look for authorization for in 2023. The overall, in very general terms right now, the overall cost of the project, building a new plant, worst case scenario is somewhere around $20 million. So we have this $5 million in 2021, and then we have another authorization number in the capital improvements program of $15 million in 2023. That number in 2023 will change based on the design work that's done between this year and next year. So it really, we don't know the absolute total cost of the plant, but that's our best estimate right now. So let's talk quickly about the road improvement project. We are placing on the warrant a $900,000 bond authorization. The project has 2 parts. We have engaged HEB engineers who have done a road study and have provided a report to the Board of Selectmen that has classified all of our roads by their condition, their current condition, and we've started to prioritize the repair and repaving of those roads. So the $900,000 bond authorization is going to have 2 parts. The first is to repair 6 roads that have just minor repairs that are being recommended. And the reason that we put those roads up front is because by spending just a little money now, we save money down the road because the roads do not deteriorate as much and they don't need major repair or repavement. So we will concentrate on fixing those 6 roads as quickly as possible so that we spend the least amount of money as we can. And then we have a project that we have been talking about for the past couple of years, which is a major rebuild and repaving of Valley Road, Tecumseh Road, and Snows Brook Road from Tecumseh down to Village Road. We have that as the second part of our planned projects because that section, those roads have already been engineered. A lot of engineering has already gone on. So we are ready to do final engineering and produce bid documents to get these roads repaved. We feel that we can accomplish both of these project parts for the $900,000 bond authorization plus the existing monies that we have for road repairs, which is probably another $175,000 or so. Final engineering would begin if the funding is authorized. We would anticipate putting it out to bid early to mid-summer of this year. And construction would be weather dependent, but would either be in the fall of this year or the spring of next year. So the important part, what are the financial impacts of all of this work? So the wastewater treatment plant, as I said, between now and 2023, it could be as much as up to $20 million in bond authorizations. We have projected, when we've looked at the numbers, we projected a bond term because these are very large bonds. The maximum number of years that we can finance this is 29 years. The impact, once all of these bonds are financed, is $3.60 per thousand on the tax rate. The other capital projects in the capital improvements plan right now include road repairs, some building work, vehicle purchases, and that sort of thing. All of the current capital improvements program has an additional $4.8 million in bond authorizations in the plan. Those bond terms, because they vary in size from around $300,000 up to $1 million, we project those bond terms on a variable amount, either 10 to 20 years. The impact of that $4.8 million in borrowing is $1.04 on the tax rate per $1,000 of value. So when you combine those two together, the impact does vary each year. However, at the max year of impact, we're showing about $6.26 per thousand in 2027. And for a $500,000 property, that's about $2,320 on our rate. There are, oh my goodness, blacked out here. Hold on, sorry. There we go. My light went out. The thing I want to just really highlight here is this is purely an estimate at this point in time. We don't know exactly what that rate, the actual change in the tax bill, the tax rate will be. But if we borrowed everything that we needed to, everything that's in the CIP, and we borrowed it right away, the max impact of what we're looking at right now is this $6.26 per thousand. So that is, now there are other considerations that we are looking at. We're exploring grant opportunities to try to reduce the town costs for both the road project and for the wastewater treatment plan project. The CIP does include all of our existing debt from previously funded projects, like our water system upgrade that we voted on in 2020. And the plan does, as I stated before, take into account other infrastructure improvements. So we're not just concentrating on the treatment plant, because leaving these other facilities to further degrade is just going to end up costing us more in the long run. So we're trying to balance the costs between the treatment plant and all of the other needs that we have in town. So, summary, we really feel that we must build a new plant because our existing plant does not, cannot be just simply brought up to the standards that we are going to have to meet with this new EPA permit. We've got to maintain our existing plant for the next 3 to 5 years. Until we actually get something in writing, our new permit requirements are pretty much up in the air. But we are moving forward to what we've been told verbally by the EPA for planning purposes. We need to make the funding the funding authorizations in these bonds multi-purpose so that we have flexibility year to year and we can react to changing requirements throughout the year. Our goal, especially on the wastewater treatment plant, is to have all planning and design complete by December of 2022. We want to be able to put the project construction phase out to bid so that we are certain about the construction costs before town meeting of 2023. So it's an aggressive engineering timeline to get all of the work done, but we really do feel like we're going to be able to meet these requirements right now. So now it is question time. I'm going to stop share, and I know that's a lot of information to digest, so that's why I wanted to concentrate on it.
You have a couple questions in chat, Mark.
Yep. Many resort communities, yes, for irrigation purposes. Yep. If we can use the treated water for other purposes, we definitely will investigate that as part of the project. We have not done that at this point, but it will be part of. The engineer is required by the state of New Hampshire to investigate other processes for the treatment and the use of the wastewater. So we definitely will look at all of these things. Another area that we're going to look at, and Deborah asked the question here about a green wastewater treatment plant. There absolutely are green things that we can do, whether it's using biological means for part of the treatment, which we are already looking at some options on that, or whether it's energy efficiency. We definitely want to make this plant as energy efficient as we can be. And there are state and federal monies in addition to wastewater that we can leverage if we are using green technology. So that is a big piece of what we've already started talking to the engineer about. Anything else? Come on, this is really exciting stuff, you guys. All right. Well, Margaret, I don't see any other questions. I guess I did an okay job, or they're all asleep. Oh, from Wendy. Does the new treatment plant? Yes, and that's part of that, part of the question of the expandability. That's why the groundwater, that's one of the major drawbacks for the groundwater discharge process, is that there isn't much expandability. So we definitely are taking future growth, especially in the center of town, into consideration when we're looking at these different options. Oh, wait a minute, now they're coming in. We know that the increase. With the tax rate, we could put money aside in the capital reserve, which would increase the tax rate now to potentially lower it later. The one reason that we have not looked to do that yet is because the interest rates have been so favorable that taxing people now to simply put it in the bank and hold on to it has not been, there hasn't really been a good cost benefit to doing that. So we're trying to get the users who are going to actually use the system in the future to pay the majority of the cost of it. And that's why we haven't created capital reserves. If we had a high interest rate climate right now where we were getting 5 or 6% on investments, then it might make sense to borrow money and put it away. But that's been the major drawback for right now. The road work could be put off. However, the longer we wait on these projects, the more the roads are going to deteriorate and the more it's going to cost to do the work. The other thing is we have already applied for a $600,000 transportation alternatives program grant because the work that we want to do on the 3 major roads, the big project, includes a bike and pedestrian path. And we can get, if we're successful with this grant application, we can get almost half of the cost of this project paid for by the federal government. So that's another reason why we don't want to hold off if we don't have to. Road work was going to wait because, well, we're not doing as much road work. We are doing this upfront project, but the future projects have been reduced in scope. So the amount of money that we're spending from 2022 to 2027 has been reduced a little bit from what was originally in the capital improvements program. Because we see now the significant financial impact of the treatment plant. Let's see. Can road work postponed? I think I addressed that. Include any repair or improvement to sewer infrastructure? No, the collection system, there is money in the capital improvements program for the repair of our sewer lines and water lines. We're going to try to investigate the lines on any roads that we repave. We want to look at the water and sewer lines in those roads before we do the repavement and repair projects. So we're actually doing both a water and wastewater assessment project during 2021 that's going to look at the condition of a lot of our sewer lines and water lines around town. And we'll try to work those repairs in as we repave roads. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your time and attention. And we look forward to providing you with other information as we get it. So Margaret, that's
Thanks, Mark. Good job. We get to listen to you all the time, but a lot of these folks don't, so.
Oh, and I do want to mention one other thing, Margaret. We are currently working, our engineering firm has a program where they do an informational video about these big projects. So they are going to come in and they are going to do a video that shows everyone our entire existing system from sewer manholes out on our roads all the way through the plant. So you're going to get to see how we actually treat water right now. It's going to be about a, 4 or 5 minute video that they've done in other plants. It's not real complex, but it helps everyone get a good idea. And that's part of their contract with us. They'll be working on that in the next month or so. And I hope to have that before our budget hearing at the end of March or maybe for town meeting in May. So be watching that. We'll definitely post that on Facebook and the town website. The engineering firm, Terry, is Hoyle and Tanner Engineers. All right. Well, thank you very much again. And if you have any questions, please send us an email or give us a call, whatever you need. We talk about this all the time at the selectmen's meetings, so that's a good place as well. So,
All right.
see you
Thanks,
around town.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
See you
you.
next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Can hardly wait.
Leaving.